At number 5 is Shatterheart's Covenant. This game was fantastic when I played it, and it's still fantastic. And I would totally recommend people go buy it if they see it like in a GameStop store. It just did so much things right. It had a great cast of characters, it had a fantastic storyline, and it got a great turn-based combat system, great customization, but it also did one thing which I find lacking in most storylines that was similar to it. Shatterheart's Covenant got a good sense of humor. Yes, that might seem silly, but I love humor in video games. I love a game that can make me laugh. And Shatterheart's Covenant knew when it was right time to be serious, when it was most of the time when right time to be epic, like when you saw the opening, and when it was right time to be humorous, and I love it for that. The storyline was fantastic, well executed, and the ending was phenomenal. And it was able to get me laugh at the comedy parts, which is a huge plus, even though there wasn't many of it. Well, I should say fortunately, because if there was too many comedy parts, it would be poorly placed in the story. The combat system was fantastic with the ring system, with how engaging it was, and the combat system also made some use of positioning compared to other turn-based RPGs which doesn't. And there was a good amount of customization in Shatterheart's Covenant with the ring and crest system. Such as with the ring system, you could totally change the ring type from normal to techno to gamma, etc., which would increase your damage input if you change it from normal, but also make it harder to hit certain areas with the ring. And there was also certain items you can equip to change the width of the hit area, or even the critical area. And the crest system was really good, as you can customize a person to be a purely support character, with a character having buff magic and healing magic, or another character with all offensive spells, or a mixture of the two. And the characters were so unique from each other, either in the game story or outside of it in combat, such as Karen's sword arts, Yuri's fusion skills, Anastasia's photo skills which she can use to gather enemy data, or even summon certain creatures that she took a picture of. The characters were also great. They were so unique from each other, and I found each of them endearing to me. Yes, even Anastasia. And the side quests were great in Shatterheart's Covenant, as it added backstory to certain characters. And the Man Festival side quest was awesome. It was so hilarious, especially at the end. So overall, Shatterheart's Covenant did a lot of things right. I mean, it's not the best looking game, but it just did so many things right, and Yuri was a fantastic protagonist. And those are the main reasons why Shatterheart's Covenant is number 5 on my top 10 favorite games of all time list. At number 4 is Golden Sun: The Lost Age. Now this is where the list gets a bit weird, because Golden Sun: The Lost Age might be on here so high up on this list because of nostalgia. I loved this game when I was a kid. I loved the combat system in the Golden Sun series, and I really like how the dungeon system added to the combat system. Dungeons were instrumental in getting stronger as you set them up for classes, but also using them in battle gave you powerful attacks, but also at the same time making you weaker. But if you were to set a couple of them up, you could use a summon, which was an extremely powerful attack. Not only that, it will increase your elemental strength, but then you run the risk of, as I said, weakening yourself by using those dungeons. It was simple, but it had a good amount of depth to it. And the combat system got the elemental weakness thing with, you know, fire, water, earth, wind, that sort of stuff. And the combat was very fast, which is a huge plus. And I love the customization that the dungeons provided in terms of changing classes. You could mix around and change how each character fought. And animations during some of the attack, such as the weapon special attack or even the summons, were fantastic. The soundtrack was great as well. And I absolutely love how the party powers, which is Psi Energy, was integral to solving the puzzle in the Golden Sun series. When I solved each puzzle using Psi Energy, it gave me a great sense of accomplishment. It really made me felt I was inspired in a magical place of alchemy with the 4 elements. I mean, most games have magic in them, but you only really use them in battle, not really in using dungeons. This really helped me immerse myself into the world Wired. I really felt it was an actual world when I was playing the game as a kid. And this left such a big impression on me when I was a kid because most other RPGs at the time didn't really do something like that. So overall, I love the dungeon design with how you can use Psi Energy to help you progress the game further along. And there were so many unique Psi Energy in the game, in the series. So yeah, it really left a big impression on me. Now for why I picked Golden Sun The Lost Age out of the entire Golden Sun series. It's because it adds so much to the original Golden Sun. For one, it added totally new Psi Energy for the new party members, such as for Jenna and Pierce. And it added a bunch of summons and a bunch of dungeons, and each of the dungeons were so unique from each other. And I love the exploration in Golden Sun The Lost Age because they provide you with a ship to explore the entire world of Wired, as compared to Golden Sun the original, where you can only explore one landmass. Though I was kind of disappointed that you couldn't return to that landmass. But I felt it kind of balanced it out in Golden Sun Lost Age because there was so much more variety in environments in Golden Sun The Lost Age than there was Golden Sun. And the story was entertaining. I mean, it's not going to win like Best Story Ever award from gaming websites, but it was very entertaining, and it kept that epic feeling throughout the game that you were really saving the world. And the data transfer Golden Sun Lost Age was fantastic. For one, it provided cameo characters from Golden Sun to appear in Golden Sun Lost Age, and you got a few items that you couldn't have gotten if you didn't use the data transfer, which is great as it rewards players who play Golden Sun, the original game. And Golden Sun The Lost Age retains everything you got from Golden Sun, the original game. I would go more into detail what that means, but that would be spoiling a bit. So yeah, Golden Sun The Lost Age was a fantastic sequel to Golden Sun. At number 3, we got Fire Emblem Blazing Sword. I love SRPGs, which is kinda weird because, like I said before, I'm very OCD about character levels, but I'm more lenient toward SRPGs in that department than I am traditional RPGs. I think I don't like reserved characters not getting experience points for traditional RPGs, mostly because each of them usually are so unique from each other, but the game penalizes you for trying to use them all. Why in SRPGs, they usually have a deeper customization systems and allow you to use all the classes throughout the game, or have enough party members in battle to accommodate almost every single type of classes there is in the game. So yeah, I don't know if those really are the reasons why I'm more lenient toward character levels in SRPGs than traditional RPGs, but I just am. Anyway, onward to the Fire Emblem series. It's an amazing series in my opinion. I just love how simple the gameplay is to grasp, but how much depth it has. I like how unique each class is, and how they're all useful in some way. Each class got their own strengths and weaknesses. I really like how utilizing each different class strengths will pay off in battle. I also love how each individual units are unique from each other, from the growth rates, how different their character models are, to even their support conversation. And I really like how the support conversation gives the characters some development at how they change a couple of character endings. Also love the tension of how losing a character in battle means you lose them forever. I personally think it gives the player a chance to get emotionally attached to the characters they're commanding or controlling. The linear nature of Fire Emblem series added to the gameplay, as you really needed to figure out who you want to level up further along in the game. Leveling up a weaker unit right now might prove useful in the long run, so there was both types of strategies in both short-term strategies, which is the strategy on how you're going to beat the map you're on right now, and the long-term one in terms of character progression, and I love it for that. And the permadeath mechanic that the Fire Emblem series employ really gave a good amount of depth to the gameplay, as you really had to be careful where you position your allies, and you had to be extremely wary of enemy movements. The permadeath mechanic of the Fire Emblem series really amplified other SRPG mechanics, such as positioning, terrain, item management. You had to be very careful in managing those so you could get through the game. And it was really rewarding when you got through an extremely tough battle without losing any of your party members. And there was some variety for some of the conditions on the map, such as routing, seizing a throne, defending for a certain amount of time. Overall, why I picked Fire Emblem Blazing Sword as my favorite Fire Emblem game is that I really like how the game tries to put the player into the story with the role of the tactician. It really immerses you into the gaming world, especially since you really are controlling the characters. Also, I really like that there are 3 character arcs in the game that you can play through, and how it gives insight into each character and their respective arc. And story-wise, Fire Emblem Blazing Sword probably has my favorite story in the Fire Emblem series that was localized to North America. I mean, Lynn's arc wasn't anything special, but that's to be expected since her whole arc was basically like a giant tutorial for newcomers to the SRPG series or the Fire Emblem series. And Eliwood chapter arc really did need a few chapters for it to get really rolling. But once I got like to the Black Fang, I was really interested to see what happens next. Though Hector arc started out pretty nicely. Overall, the story took a little bit of time to get going, but once it did, it was great throughout. And the music was fantastic. And gameplay wise, I found Fire Emblem Blazing Sword to be the most balanced in the Fire Emblem games that got released. Sacred Sword wasn't really balanced in the sense that you could grind throughout the game. Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn got Ike, the most broken lord in the series. That I didn't really felt terrain play a big part in Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn gameplay as it did Fire Emblem 7 or Fire Emblem 6. As for Shadow Dragon, I haven't beaten the game, only started it, but I don't really like it as much. I will go more into detail why I don't like Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon as much as the other Fire Emblem, but I think that would go off on a tangent. So I found Fire Emblem Blazing Sword to be the most balanced of the Fire Emblem that came out in North America. Both balanced and totally fun in how the chapters were set up. One of the most important aspects in an SRPG is how the map is set up with the enemies and environments. And Fire Emblem does this wonderfully, especially Fire Emblem 7. So yeah, Fire Emblem 7 is an amazing game. The gameplay was simple to grasp, but had tons of depth to it. It also got a great story, even though it took a little bit of time to start it up. And the music was great. And the 2D sprite animation gave the game its own unique charm. So yeah, those are the reasons why Fire Emblem Blazing Sword is number 3 in my top 10 favorite games of all time list.
Looks like we got them all!
My second favorite game of all time is Dark Cloud 2. This was very hard to choose between the first Dark Cloud and Dark Cloud 2 because I loved them both, and each of them got something they have over the other. The first one got a great story and I was very attached to it. Why the second one? The story is good as well, but I'd probably like the first one better. Though Dark Cloud 2 had a better villain than Dark Cloud 1 in my opinion. And character wise, I probably like Dark Cloud 2 better because Dark Cloud 2 was limited to 2 protagonists compared to Dark Cloud 1, 7, or 8. But I felt they were more relevant to the plot than Dark Cloud 1, where you only really need them for one stage, and they sorta disappear in the story, plot-wise. Though Cetus was a great character, especially what happens to him at the start of the final dungeon. It was both epic and sad at the same time. Even though it didn't have any voice acting in it, I really felt the emotion in that cutscene before the final dungeon. It left a great impression on me, and that's why Dark Cloud 1 will always have a special place in my heart. But I chose Dark Cloud 2 because of its gameplay mechanics, how much it improved upon the original. That and presentation wise, Dark Cloud 2 was more impressive than Dark Cloud 1. I mean, besides the story, Dark Cloud 2 graphics style was great. It looked fantastic for the time it was released. Now on to why I love Dark Cloud 2. This game was amazing when I played it. If there's any game which I said has taken over my gaming life, it's this one. Dark Cloud 2 is my favorite game on the PS2. It's also my most replayed game ever, and probably the game I spend the most on. And that's mostly because the gameplay mechanics in Dark Cloud 2 were excellently executed. The combat system was fun and engaging. It's not the best combat system out there, but it's very fun, and there was a good amount of enemy variety in the game, so going through combat was really fun for me. And the weapon build-up system was fantastic with how much customizable things you could do, such as synthesizing like an attack sphere, water sphere, scale sphere into the weapon so it would be more effective against certain enemy types. And there are also special coins you could have synthesized into the weapon that gave special abilities as well. And when you achieve certain parameters with a weapon, you could build up to an entirely stronger, different weapon, which would make it easier to level up, because as you level up a weapon to +1, +2, it gets harder for stuff to level up your weapon. But if you build up to an entirely different weapon, it goes back to level 1, where it's very easy to get experience points for your weapons. So yeah. And Dark Cloud 2, to improve on some of the mechanics from the original Dark Cloud, such as water level being gone, which was, in my opinion, very tedious in Dark Cloud. And the gameplay mechanics outside the combat system was great. The invention system was fantastic, as it connected the environment into a gameplay mechanic by taking pictures of everyday stuff, and then using the idea of these everyday stuff to combine into an invention. And the diorama was fantastic in Dark Cloud 2, as you could have built the towns the way you see fit. Even though, no matter how you build them, it would be kind of a ghost town because the NPCs stay inside. But I still love how much customization the diorama system provided. This, along with the weapon system, made Dark Cloud 2 had great customization in their gameplay. And I really like how building a certain stuff up at the origin point really changed the future. I mean, it was really linear, as you had to build up those points in order to get some stuff in the future to progress the story. But it's very nice to witness as this little town you're creating turns into big, majestic temple or workshop in the future. And the minigames in Dark Cloud 2 were fantastic. The fishing minigame was great. It had a lot of depth to it in how you raise your fish and putting them in the fishing frenzy against other fish. And there was a great sense of accomplishment when you do win the contest. And Spheda was great. It was in depth as, or almost as, the fishing contest, and there was a great sense of accomplishment when you close up a time gate, because, well, Spheda can be pretty brutal at times. And so it was really satisfying when you close it up, because it was of the challenge that Spheda provided. That and the items you get from closing the time gate was great, as you couldn't get the items you get from Spheda normally, like through defeating enemies or something. So yeah, playing through Spheda and closing time gates was very satisfying, from both how hard Spheda can be and the items you get from it. So yeah, combine all the gameplay mechanics of Dark Cloud 2 has: fun and engaging combat system, fantastic customization with weapon build-up system, diorama system, fishing system, invention system, and Spheda. Each of these are great on their own, but combined, it makes an amazing game. And the story was good. It's not great like some of the games in the list, but was very entertaining. And the story really made you felt you were going on an epic adventure. Traversing the world, trying to fix what Griffin destroyed, seeing the labors of your work by traversing into the future, made the story really enjoyable to me. And the graphical style of Dark Cloud 2 looked great for a time release, and it has aged pretty well compared to some other PS2 games that I've played. And the music was fantastic, especially Time is Changing, because really, that song describes exactly what you're about to do in Dark Cloud 2. You're about to embark on an amazing journey. In fact, the song is so good that it plays both at the beginning, at the end. It totally fits, and you feel just as emotionally invested in it, even if it is the same song with a different tempo. It's that good. So yeah, those are the main reasons why Dark Cloud 2 remains my second favorite game of all time. Maybe it has something to do with nostalgia as well, but still, I still feel that Dark Cloud 2 is my second favorite game of all times. Number 1 on my top 10 favorite games of all time list. My favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy Tactics. Yes, it's a Final Fantasy title, but there's one thing you should know. It wasn't hard to pick out of all the games in the Final Fantasy series I played, because I haven't played much of the Final Fantasy franchise. Of all the number iterations in the series, I've only played X, X2, and 12. 13, but I am trying to remedy that by playing Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 1 on the PSP, but at the time moment, Final Fantasy Tactics is my favorite game of all time. And honestly, I really don't see any of the Final Fantasy games topping Final Fantasy Tactics for me. It's a near perfect game. The story was fantastic and very compelling. It was from the start, I was very interested in it. That's very rare in an RPG, since it usually takes some time for it to get rolling, but I was very invested in it from the start. I think I found the story great and compelling because it had a great amount of political intrigue in the form of the power struggle for the throne between the Black Lion of Prince Gold Lana side and Prince Larg of the White Lion side, and Delita being a huge part of it. I would say more, but that would be spoiling a bit. And it had the epic save the world plot as well with the Zodiac Braves. So yeah, it combined those elements pretty well in my opinion, and was very compelling. The characters were great as well, as each of them had a good amount of depth to them, especially Delita and Ramza, two people who got the same uprising but go on totally different paths because of circumstances. I found that really interesting when I was playing through the game, and each of the other characters were great as well. Though if I had one issue with them is that when the character officially joins your party, they sort of disappear into the plot. So yeah. And Final Fantasy Tactics had great gameplay. For one, Final Fantasy Tactics had amazing customization. How each individual character fought was entirely up to you with the job system and ability setup. Abilities were crucial in Final Fantasy Tactics, whether there be action abilities, reaction abilities, and passive abilities. They were very crucial in how your character played out, and learning different abilities from different classes was very fun to me, as I wanted to experiment which abilities would be the most effective and what particular class would fit my character more. And I really felt that Final Fantasy Tactics really rewarded me with my experimenting around classes and learning their abilities. As you learn more abilities in this particular class, in some particular class, you can earn new classes such as ninja, samurai, lancers. And learning each of the class was fun to me, as I want to experiment which kind of abilities would really work well with my particular playstyle. So yeah, Final Fantasy Tactics had fantastic customization, and at the same time, it gave their unique NPCs their own personality by giving them each unique skills, such as Agrias' Holy Sword skills. And the battle skills were great, and it got a good amount of depth to them, since you really needed to take account into certain factors, such as what class the enemy is, how much movement range there are, what kind of abilities they have, such as a knight having a arrow guard, which means my archers would be totally useless against that type of character. So yeah, there's a good amount of depth in terms of what class the enemies were and what abilities they have. And you really had to take into consideration the turn order that the game provided for you, because some powerful spells required some turns for them to activate, but if you activate it after the enemy moved, you wouldn't hit them, because the spell would only target the position that the enemy was at. So yeah, you really had to take consideration to several factors. And the AT turn system really gave more emphasis on positioning, since you really needed to be sure that your spell was going to hit the character before they move. So yeah, overall, Final Fantasy Tactics had fantastic gameplay, with fantastic customization, and great battle that had a good amount of depth to it in terms of how you customize your characters, the AT turn system, and you really had to take consideration to height differences as well. And graphically, Final Fantasy Tactics looked great for the time. I mean, it wasn't really as impressive as Final Fantasy VII, as that game was in the first few games that went into 3D model area, but its 2D sprites looked great as well. And the character design for each class was very unique and very appealing to the eyes. And the special effects for some of the attacks were great as well. So yeah, it looked great for the time it came out. And the music was fantastic. One of my favorite soundtracks in a video game ever. So yeah, Final Fantasy Tactics on the whole is a fantastic game, near perfect game. I mean, there are some aspects of it that are pretty annoying, such as Rio Vane's Castle. I just need to say Rio Vane's Castle, and everyone who played Final Fantasy Tactics will know what I mean. Yeah. And the localization is pretty iffy, but overall, even with those issues, I still love the game. It still remains my favorite game of all time, despite Rio Vane Castle being very frustrating and the localization being iffy at times. So, fantastic story, great SRPG battle mechanics, fantastic customization, fantastic soundtrack, and great characterization for Ramza, the leader, and some other characters in the story makes Final Fantasy Tactics #1 on my top 10 games of all time list. And now we reach to the end of our video. Man, this video was much longer than I thought it was going to be. Took a lot longer than my other videos, but I still had a lot of fun making it, so yeah. And plus, it's not every day that I get 50 subscribers to my channel. So I'm very appreciative of all the people who decide to subscribe to me. And I really hope my subscribers and the other viewers of this video had as much fun as watching this video as I had with making it. And now that you know my top 10 favorite video games of all times, I was wondering what your top 10 favorite video games of all times are. Because I'm very curious of the top tier games that's out there on the market. I'm just one guy, so it's impossible for me to have heard all of these great games that came out, let alone play them. So I'm very curious on what top tier games you guys would recommend me playing. And know that your top 10 video games of all times don't have to be limited to role-playing games. It's my personal favorite genre, but I do play some other video games as well, such as puzzles, action-adventure, FPS, third-person shooters, etc. I'm very open to game genres. The only genre I don't probably play is real-time strategy games, but that's probably mostly because I don't really play much PC games myself. So yeah, I'm very curious about people's top 10. Either put a comment in the comment section, or you can even do a video response.